The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 64. Jacob did not eat at home tonight. According to him, it was dinner with a few leaders of the Calligraphy and Painting Association and a few key members of the Senior University Fellows. It was just after 9 o'clock that he called Charlie. When Jacob called, Charlie was watching TV with his wife in the living room. Elaine, the mother-in-law, posted a caviar anti-aging mask, lying on the love seat on all fours, leisurely swiping the short video platform, and muttering in her mouth, "The Japanese girl who came to our Oris Hill to participate in the fighting game, she looks really good." Charlie knew that she was definitely talking about Nanako, and the phone shook without even speaking. Seeing that it was Jacob calling, he put on the phone and said, "Hey, Dad." Jacob's voice sounded a little drunk, and he smiled, "Oh, my son-in-law, come to Classic Mansion to pick me up?" I drank some wine. Charlie didn't think too much, and said, "Okay, Dad, I'll come there." As he said, he stood up and said, "Mom, Claire, I will pick up Dad." He had a drink with someone from the Calligraphy and Painting Association. Claire stood up at this time and said, "Charlie, let me pick up Dad with you." Charlie didn't think much, nodded lightly, and said, "Okay, then drive your car." When Elaine heard Jacob drinking outside, she said annoyedly, "This old fraudulent is getting more and more presumptuous now. Good son-in-law, don't pick him up. Let him roll back by himself. When he rolls back, I will lock the door and won't let him in, let him sleep in the yard." Charlie shrugged and said, "Mom, you and Dad shouldn't be so unhappy. We all live under the same roof. Even if you are separated, you should get along well." Elaine looked like a human, and immediately realized that Charlie was just talking about her. She murmured in heart, "Although I and Jacob are separated, we still live in Charlie's villa. If I have trouble with Jacob, Charlie will definitely be unwilling. If that happens, I will tear my face with him. It's not worth the loss." So, she could only put away her anger at Jacob, pretending to be disdainful, and said, "Actually, I don't bother to be familiar with people like him. When my legs are healed, I will fill in my teeth, and I will go out to play every day. We two people won't interfere with each other anymore." When Charlie heard this, he immediately said with a smile, "Okay, respecting each other and not interfering with each other, it couldn't be better." Elaine looked at Charlie and smiled flatteringly, and said, "Good son-in-law, you will have to give Mom some pocket money at that time. I am basically penniless now. If I go out to have dinner with friends, take it if I don't pay, don't want to play with me." Charlie still doesn't know Elaine's careful thinking. All she thinks about all day is money, making faces, playing cards, and being chic. She has no money, and she doesn't go out to play, because her legs are really inconvenient, and her image has been seriously damaged because of the loss of 2 front teeth. When her legs are healed, her teeth will be filled, and she must be thinking about going out every day. If she has no money, she will not know what moths will be treated by then. However, for Charlie, it would be a good thing to send her out if he just give her some money. So he said lightly, "Mom, when your legs are healed, your teeth will be patched up, and I will give you 50,000 in pocket money a month." "Really?" Elaine was immediately happy. 50,000 pocket money a month is indeed a lot. When she used to have 2 million in her hands, she was not willing to spend so much a month. In fact, Elaine's daily expenses are nothing more than playing cards occasionally, shopping with her old plastic sisters, making faces, having dinner parties, singing K, and occasionally buying clothes, skincare products, etc. It costs 50,000 a month. That's more than enough. She was excited and said to Charlie, "Good son-in-law, why didn't Mom find that you were so good before?" Charlie smiled without saying a word. He knew that a shrew like Elaine would be able to spend 50,000 a month, and he would have spent money to buy her a long time ago. Elaine was only thinking about slapping Charlie, and deliberately said to Claire earnestly, "Oh, Claire, you see that you are not too young, and you have been married to Charlie for almost 4 years. I want to say, this time for the two of you to have children. Our family of 4 lives in such a big villa. It's a bit deserted. If there is a child running around, it would be so lively." Charlie was shocked when he heard this. "Okay. My mother-in-law really opened her eyes when she saw money. It seems that she has completely bowed to money now. You know, she had repeatedly told Claire before that she could never have a relationship with him." Charlie still remembered that once, this old lady rushed into his and Claire's bedroom early in the morning. It turned out that she had a dream and dreamed that the two of them were married, so she had to confirm it if she was just dreaming or was it real. On another occasion, Elsa asked his wife to go to a hot spring with her. After hearing this, the old lady, in order to prevent him from taking advantage of her, also asked her to not wear bikini and told her to sleep in separate rooms with her. However, never dreamed that her attitude would have undergone a 180-degree change. So, he immediately nodded approvingly, "Mom, you are so right. Our family is short of a child." "Oh no. 2. Elaine laughed and said, "If you want me to tell you, you need 3 children. When that happens, I will give you children care with all my heart." Charlie smiled and said, "Mom, I will work hard for you then." Elaine hurriedly said, "Oh my son-in-law, why are you and your mom being polite? Isn't it just right for me to see your baby?" Charlie nodded, glanced at Claire who was blushing, and he was happy. It seems that as long as the money is in place, this Elaine will easily turn to his side. So, he deliberately said to Elaine with a serious face, "Mom, can't let you work in vain at that time, so let me give you more than 100,000 hard work a month for every child." "Oh my God!" Elaine happily sat up from the sofa and exclaimed, "Really? Give 100,000 a month with 1 child? 200,000 with 2 children?" Charlie nodded, "Mom, when Charlie speaks, I always say one thing." Elaine was so excited, she blurted out, "Okay, okay." After finishing speaking, she looked at Claire and said excitedly, "Claire, your mother knows an old doctor who has a secret recipe for twins. When the time comes, your mother will buy you a few servings. You can eat them first. Try to have both at one time." Elaine knew very well that her pocket money of 50,000 a month was enough for her daily expenses, but if she wanted to upgrade her consumption level, this amount of money would be stretched. But now it's not the same as before. She lost more than 2 million things because of gambling and couldn't control the financial power of the family. Jacob could not give her money, and her daughter would not be willing to give the money to her, and her own hands again are without savings. It is difficult to get extra money. But if her daughter really gave birth to Charlie twins, then her 1 month's pocket money could rise from 50,000 to 250,000. 250,000. That can really lead her life like a queen. Claire didn't expect Charlie to launch a money offensive against her mother. Moreover, she didn't expect that the effect of this money offensive looks really good. All of a sudden, she was so embarrassed that she wanted to sew in. At this moment, Elaine saw that she was not talking, and she kept urging her aside, "Good girl, tomorrow I will take you to the doctor and he'll prescribe some medicine." Claire was really helpless, and said embarrassingly, "Mom, stop talking nonsense here." Elaine said solemnly, "How can this be nonsense? I also want to hug my grandson earlier." Claire knew that if she didn't leave by herself, she would definitely talk endlessly, so she hurriedly pushed Charlie, "Let's go, and pick Dad home." Charlie smiled and nodded, and said, "Then pick up Dad first, let's talk about the twins later." Elaine echoed from the side, "Yes, yes. I'll talk about it later, I think it's tomorrow." Helpless, Claire pushed Charlie all the way out of the house. After going out, Claire pretended to be angry and said to Charlie, "Charlie, why do you want to tell my mother that?" Charlie smiled and said, "Isn't this the point of rushing here?" Claire gave him a blank look, don't know what bad idea you have made. I tell you, if you want to upgrade, you can honestly rise a little bit, but don't expect to persuade my mother to skip the level." Charlie said cheerfully, "I don't have this idea. I just feel that our parents are getting older, and they must also want to hug their grandson earlier." Claire said embarrassedly, "Hold what hug? Hurry up and drive." Charlie nodded, drove Claire's BMW out of the garage, and the two set off for Classic Mansion together. After the two arrived at Classic Mansion, they saw a few elderly people talking and laughing standing at the door. Jacob and Miking were standing side by side. Jacob was also considered handsome among middle-aged and elderly people, and Miking's temperament and appearance was even the top of her peers. The existence, so standing together, it really fits well. At this time, the two talked and laughed with others, and they looked harmonious and natural. Miking also carried a gift box, which was the same caviar skincare set that Charlie gave to Claire and Elaine. Seeing this, Claire felt very uncomfortable. She asked Charlie, "You said my dad won't cheat, right?" Charlie laughed dumbly, "Oh, my wife, where do you want to go? Dad and Aunt are old classmates and old friends. They are just having a party and dinner together. How can they get involved with the cheating?" Claire said nervously, "But don't forget, they are also old lovers. The two of them are each other's first love, and in this situation is the easiest to cheat." Charlie said, "Good wife, this kind of thing is not something we can manage as children. Parents have their plans, so let's not interfere." At this moment, a Buick GL8 commercial vehicle parked in front of several elderly people. A young man walked down from the car. Charlie recognized him at a glance. It was Miking's son, Paul. When Paul got out of the car, he greeted several old people very politely. At the same time, he handed a gift bag to Miking. After Miking took the gift bag, she turned around and handed the gift bag directly to Jacob. Jacob was obviously taken aback, and it seemed that he had shirked several times, but Miking's expression was very insistent, so he accepted with a little embarrassment. Charlie and Claire were in the car, some distance from them, so they couldn't hear what they were talking about. However, it can be seen from this meaning that Miking should have asked her son Paul to help, and prepared a gift for Jacob. Seeing that the two exchanged gifts, Claire was even more depressed. Look at Dad and Aunt, they are like ordinary friends, they are like a middle-aged and elderly couple in love. Charlie nodded lightly. He had long noticed that the two people still had a deep affection for each other, and Miking even named Paul Han Mykin in Chinese, which shows that she has never forgotten Jacob in her heart. As for Jacob, let alone, after being oppressed by Elaine for so many years, they didn't know how much he missed and yearned for Miking. If Elaine had been evaporated directly when she stole his bank card, then Jacob might have reunited with Miking now. At this time, Claire couldn't stand it, and said to Charlie, "You press the horn twice to remind Dad, otherwise he can talk for another half an hour." Charlie nodded and honked the horn. Jacob looked over and recognized Claire's car. He thought that Charlie had come to pick him up. He waved at the car with a smile on his face, and then reluctantly said to Miking, "Oh, Miking, my son-in-law came to pick me up, so I will go back first." Miking smiled and said softly, "Tell me when you get home, so I don't worry about it." "Okay." Jacob smiled contentedly. Claire took advantage of Jacob's turn to talk to Miking, and said to Charlie, "Dad probably doesn't know that I am also here. I'll go and sit in the back row." With that, she pushed the door and got out of the car, then got into the back row. She knows Jacob's car habit, he likes to sit in the co-pilot the most, so as long as there is no one in the co-pilot, he will definitely get in without hesitation. And the reason she wanted to hide in the back row was because she felt that Jacob had a drink, and he wouldn't be able to look back later. Seeing Charlie driving over, he must open the passenger car door and sat in. As predicted, Jacob greeted Miking and the others, and ran over and came to the front of the car. Without hesitation, he opened the passenger door directly, sitting in and singing in his mouth, "I smile smugly, smile smugly." After singing, he smiled and said to Charlie, "Good son-in-law, you have to come here to pick me up." Charlie said, "Dad, why are you polite to me?" "That's right." Jacob patted Charlie's arm, and said gratefully, "Thank you for the set of skincare products you prepared for Dad today. Your aunt likes it very much." "Oh. This may be my gift for her in my life. The most expensive gift." After that, Jacob couldn't help but sighed, "Hey, I really owe you too much." Charlie heard him talk about Miking directly, and was still sighing with emotion, but he didn't know that his daughter Claire was sitting in the back row. Thinking of this, he hurriedly winked at Jacob to remind him that there was someone behind him. Jacob was dizzy when he was drinking. How could he have this sensitivity? While urging Charlie to drive, he put the gift bag in his hand on his lap, and said with joy, "Your aunt secretly asked Paul to buy me a gift. Here you see, this is it, I can open it firmly, I will open it and see what it is." Charlie had no choice but to say, "Okay Dad, I will try my best to be more stable, but you must be careful too." When he said this, Charlie didn't forget to remind him to be careful behind him with his eyes. Jacob didn't know what Charlie meant, and while unpacking it, he said seriously, "This is a gift from your aunt." "Of course I will be careful. I can break myself, but I can't touch this thing broken." Jacob thought that he and Charlie were the only two in the car, and Charlie was not only his son-in-law, but also his most trustworthy person. Therefore, he was almost unguarded against him, and he was not afraid that would mind about those things with miking. At this time, while unpacking the package, he sighed, "Oh, my dear son-in-law, don't you know how popular your aunt is now in senior colleges? Those who like her are from 30 to 40 years old. From young to 60 or 70 years old, the number of suitors can't be counted. If you're dad, I don't pay close attention to it, I'm afraid the situation will be bad." Charlie hushed awkwardly, and switched the subject away and said, "Dad, don't you drink less at night, or stop talking, close your eyes and rest for a while." "How do you do that?" Jacob said immediately, "I haven't seen what your auntie gave me." With that said, the outer packaging has been opened by him. Seeing the box inside, he couldn't help exclaiming, "I'm going dizzy." It turned out to be a Rolex. Charlie listened and glanced subconsciously, and found that there was a Rolex watch in the box. Jacob picked up the watch carefully, looked at it, and exclaimed, "This is the very popular green water ghost, isn't it? It shouldn't be a 180,000? Charlie glanced at it and said with a smile, "Dad, you are too ignorant, this is not a green water ghost, this is a gold watch." "Gold watch?" Jacob frowned and said, "Don't know anything about watches. I heard people say that Rolex water ghost is very valuable. You said it is gold? How much is it worth?" Charlie said, "The price of Rolex has risen sharply recently. This piece is probably between 350,000 and 380,000. Mom, it's so expensive." Jacob's tone changed a little, and he blurted out, "A watch worth nearly 400,000, this is too scary." Charlie said indifferently, "Dad, the set of skincare products you gave Aunt is about 390,000. It will be gone after a period of time. If this watch is well maintained, it will not be a problem to use it for decades. It will increase in value in the future. For example, the green water ghost, which used to be able to buy 50,000, now has 100,000 price tag." Jacob nodded repeatedly, touching the watch and couldn't put it down. This was given to him by miking, and it was of great significance to him. He put the watch on his wrist, carefully examined it, and said happily, "Oh, this watch is so beautiful that the more you look, just say you Aunt loves me more. For someone else, who is willing to give me such an expensive watch. My mother is reluctant, Charlie, don't you think?" Charlie said embarrassingly, "Haha, Dad, if you drink too much, better take a rest first." "What are you asking me to rest for?" Jacob said, "I have to take a few pictures with my phone and send it to Aunt to show her how good her vision is." As he said, he immediately took out his cell phone. As soon as he took out my phone, the phone rang. Jacob couldn't help but muttered, "Oh, it is from Claire. Charlie, don't talk nonsense. If she asks later, you can't let her know that I am talking to you about Aunt and we ate together." Charlie stretched out his right hand to cover half of his face. He really didn't know how to respond to this stupid old man. At this time, Jacob pressed the answer button, and said in a casual way, "Hey, Claire, I have come back with Charlie." Just listen to Claire's angry voice from the back seat, "Dad. You really disappointed me." Jacob let out a terrified cry. The phone fell off his hand and fell into a gap. He didn't care about picking up the phone, and looked back at Claire in horror. "Cla, Claire? Why are you in the car?" Claire asked angrily, "Why can't I be in the car? If I'm not in the car, would I know that you have derailed?" Jacob suddenly seemed to be stepped on his tail, and blurted out, "Oh, don't talk nonsense, when did I cheat?" Claire said, "You and that aunt are already at the point where you can send such expensive gifts to each other, and you are carrying your mother on your back, dating and having dinner in private. What is this if not cheating?" Jacob hurriedly said, "This is not a derailment. Aunt and I are very respectful, and have never crossed line for half a step. Besides, your mother and I are separated and have no feelings. Divorce is a matter of time. Even if I do is really cheating, that can't be called cheating, that's the beginning of a new relationship." You. Claire's angry little face flushed, and her eyes were tearful and said, "How can you do this? I always thought you are a good father and husband. But I did not expect that you have become so excessive now. You have been with Mom for more than 20 years. For more than 20 years of ups and downs, even if there is no love, family affection is always there, right? You must at least give Mom at least your respect." Jacob explained, "I didn't disrespect her. If I disrespect her, I would have reconciled with you, Aunt. It is because I respect her that I have to divorce her formally, and then just follow your aunt and be together." Claire cried and asked, "Why do you have to divorce my mother and be with that aunt? Do you know that this practice is immoral? Does that aunt know that being a third party, that it is immoral to get involved in someone else's marriage?" Jacob was also anxious, and blurted out, "Your aunt is not the third party. Your mother is the third party." Claire was stunned. "Dad, what are you talking about?" Jacob said coldly, "I'm not talking nonsense. I should have been with your aunt. Back then, if your mother was not involved in as the third party and took me to the guest house to open a room after I was drunk, how could your aunt leave me?" After that, Jacob was very excited and continued, "Claire, do you know how shamelessly your mother was doing things back then? She and your aunt were roommates and best friends. And me? I was her best friend's male partner. Friend. But she actually had S3X with me while I was drunk, and even ran to show off with your aunt, forcing your aunt to leave the country back then, and then forced me to marry her by getting pregnant with you. She is the third party who has no morals." When Claire heard this, she was completely stunned. She heard from her mother that Dad had a first love back then, but when Mom talked about that first love, she always said that he was AV, Zen, but she never explained what happened between them. Therefore, she has always thought that her parents are in love together normally, but there was a short wave in the middle. However, after hearing what Dad said today, she realized that it turned out that it was the third mother who got involved in the relationship between Dad and other women. This completely overturned her understanding of the feelings and love between her parents over the past 2 decades. Just when Claire was dumbfounded and didn't know how to respond for a while, Jacob, who was in the co-pilot, was so aggrieved that he burst into tears and choked up. Back then, your mother and I could say that we had no emotional foundation. To speak a conscience, I even talked to her before getting drunk that night. I haven't said a few words. You should be able to see that your aunt is much better than your mother in all aspects. It is impossible for a normal man to give up your miking and choose your mother. I was totally forced to be helpless. With that said, Jacob looked out the window with a sad look, and said with a bit of pain, "At the beginning, I had planned the life after graduation with your aunt. We were going to study in the United States together after graduation. You should know that it was very popular to go abroad those years. Everyone sharpened their heads and drilled out. What we both thought at the time was that if the development in the United States is more appropriate, then we will get married and settle in the United States, and then we will have a high-end talent immigrant life. The plan was very clear, it can be said to be bright. But, what's the result? As a result, because I drank too much wine at the party, your mother took advantage of it and forced your aunt away, ruined my life's happiness, and ruined all my life plans. Why haven't I been motivated and confused for so many years? I stay at home all day long, and I can't see the appearance of a famous university graduate. Isn't it because your mother ruined my life trajectory at the beginning? I lost the direction and motivation to work hard." Having said this, Jacob's emotions could no longer be stretched, and he cried loudly, "This is only in my life. If it is ruined, it can no longer be remedied. What about you? All you see is that your mother seems to be wronged. But have you ever thought about how I have lived over the past 20 years? What's my mood?" Claire also choked silently. She really did not expect that her father had been so wronged over the years. Even the life trajectory that was originally set has undergone earth-shaking changes because of the intervention of the mother as a third party. Originally, her father and aunt might go to the United States for further studies, get married, and become social leaders. But later, after father and mother got married, they became a waste in the eyes of grandma, and an ado who couldn't help. Later, Dad also gave up resistance altogether and led a leisurely life every day. Of course, this was due to his own failure to make progress, but on the whole it was caused by the intervention of a third party in the form of her mother. To be fair, Mom ruined Dad for a lifetime. She turned him from a vigorous college student into a greasy decadent middle-aged man. In the past 2 decades, her father must have been very wronged, but he had never mentioned these words to her before. Moreover, her mother's character is so aggressive, and she is the initiator of the whole thing. Dad must not be able to talk to her, so in this family, Dad has no one to complain. Then these grievances, they should be alive in his stomach for the 20 years. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel wronged for her father. So, she sobbed and comforted, "Dad, don't cry, it's my fault. I didn't figure out what was going on, so I blamed you indiscriminately, sorry." Jacob rubbed his eyes and sighed deeply, "Hey! Dad didn't want you to apologize to me, Dad just wanted your understanding." Claire nodded lightly, and sighed, "I won't go too much about your business in the future. I just hope you can handle these relationships well." For Claire now, she knows the story and can no longer prevent her father from contacting Miking. However, she is Elaine's biological daughter after all. Out of respect for her mother and the family of 3, she will never clearly support his father to pursue Miking. Therefore, she feels that the only thing she can do now is to stop worrying about things between her parents. Whether it was their grievances back then or the entanglement they are now, they never bothered. Jacob did not expect his daughter to be able to support him with a clear-cut stand and not to interfere. It was already the best result he could think of. So he was excited and said, "Oh, Claire, you can do this. Dad is really too thankful to you." Claire sighed softly and said, "Dad, the watch that Aunt gave you, you shouldn't wear it when you are at home, lest Mom sees it and asks what's going on." "I understand." Jacob nodded excitedly, and continued, "I will never wear this watch at home in the future." Although Charlie on the side had not spoken, but when he heard this, he was a little relieved for Jacob. It's really not easy for him to be an old man. In fact, the reason why he has tolerated Elaine for so many years was mainly because of Claire. If it weren't for his daughter, he couldn't always bear it, so it can be seen from here that his old man is not useless, at least his paternal love for Claire is still very great. Moreover, even when he was questioned by Claire, he never said that the grievances over the past 2 decades were due to Claire's existence, and he was worthy of the 2 words of father's love. Back to Thompson, Charlie was about to drive into the community, and suddenly saw Nanako standing at the gate of the community wearing a mask. Although the mask covered her face, Charlie could still determine that this woman was Nanako based on her body shape, hairstyle, and feeling. Seeing that he was driving closer, Nanako first took a few steps to her side subconsciously, but she probably saw Jacob and Claire in the car, so she stopped again. Charlie knew that his wife and old man were in the car, and couldn't stop to greet her or ask her what he was doing here, so he could only drive in the car first, thinking about making an excuse later, and come out to have a look. The car returned to Thompson's villa. Before Charlie's car stopped, Jacob had already put away the watch given by Miking. After the car stopped, he hurriedly pushed the door and got out of the car to hide the watch in his BMW. Seeing this, Claire couldn't help but sighed softly, and said to Charlie in a low voice, "Suddenly I feel that my father is so pitiful, he must have been wronged for so many years, right?" Charlie nodded and said, "Dad, he has been suppressed for 26 or 7 years, and he might have collapsed long ago when he changed to someone else." Claire asked him, "Did you know these things a long time ago? You don't seem surprised at all to me." Charlie said, "The last time I accompanied him to his alma mater to attend a class reunion, I heard others talk about it." Claire nodded suddenly, and asked him, "Then why didn't you tell me?" Charlie said helplessly, "Just after this incident, Mom disappeared in an accident. At that time, you seemed to have lost your soul, and you just wanted to find your mother. How could I add trouble to you?" Claire nodded slightly, and sighed again. Charlie thought of Nanako at the door, and said, "You and Dad will go in first, and I will go out." Claire asked curiously, "Why are you going out so late?" Charlie said, "I'm going to buy some liver-protecting tablets for Dad." "Didn't he drink alcohol?" Claire said, "Let me go." Charlie waved his hand, "You go in with Dad. If Mom nags him again, you can help reconcile a little bit." When Charlie came out of the villa, there was no shadow of Nanako at the door. He looked around for a few times, but Nanako was not found. This made Charlie couldn't help wondering, his own feeling just now was not wrong. Although the girl was wearing a mask, he was sure that she was Nanako. Since she came to Thompson, she must have come to find him. Why did she suddenly disappear? Thinking of this, Charlie couldn't help sighing, but he really couldn't figure out the brain circuit of this girl. At this time, Nanako was hiding in a milk tea shop, looking at Charlie from a distance. Seeing that Charlie seemed a little stunned, she also felt a strange feeling somewhere in her heart. She did come to Charlie tonight, and the final was about to come. She also knew that it would be difficult for her to win Aoxu, and she might even be injured in the game. Her master and her family didn't want her to continue participating in the finals. However, she felt that a qualified martial artist could not be as strong as others, but her willpower would never be able to defeat the opponent, so she decided to continue participating in the competition and at the same time be prepared to be injured. For this reason, her father sent a special plane and a top medical team in the country. This team will be on the spot in the finals. If Nanako is injured in the game, they will immediately rescue her and ride at the same time. The special plane will take her to Tokyo for treatment within 3 hours. So, in that case, after she is on the field, she probably wouldn't have the chance to meet Charlie, so Nanako thought, and come over to see him again tonight. However, she did not expect that she was waiting at the door of Thompson just now. Seeing Charlie driving back, she discovered that there was still a very beautiful woman sitting in the back seat of the car. This made her suddenly realize that that woman must be Charlie's wife. At that moment, she felt a little lost in her heart, and felt that she shouldn't bother a married man, so she prepared to go back to the hotel. But even though she was about to leave, she still wanted to know if Charlie had seen her or would come out to see her, so she ordered a cup of milk tea at this milk tea shop and sat down. In Nanako's heart, the feeling about Charlie was very complicated. Because he abolished her mentor, she blamed him a bit and felt that he was too cruel, because she is extremely powerful, and she admire him a little bit. She thinks he is the real martial arts master, because he scolded her badly last time. She felt a bit ashamed in front of him, and even her aura and inner strength would be affected by him, so that when she thought of him, her heart would always be soft. It's just that she doesn't know that this soft feeling is more like a crush and admiration. She received a rigorous aristocratic education since she was a child, and she has excellent psychological quality. But recently, whenever she thinks of Charlie, her heartbeat speeds up hard for her to sustain herself. Even if Charlie is not in front of her, she still feels nervous, and her heart is like a small deer. At this moment, even looking at Charlie from a distance, she still felt her heartbeat speed up. Moreover, when she saw Charlie's expression somewhat regrettable, she felt a burst of joy in her heart. Just as when she was in the ring, seeing Charlie's eyes with a bit of distress, made her very satisfied. So she hurriedly said to the boss, "Boss, add another cup of milk tea." The boss said, "Miss, we are about to close, and the clerk is off work. I can't make milk tea now, sorry." "Okay." Nanako nodded helplessly. At this moment, she suddenly saw Charlie walking towards the right side of the gate of Thompson's villa, so she hurriedly held her milk tea and ran out. Charlie thought that Nanako was gone, so he planned to go to the drugstore to buy a box of liver-protecting tablets for the old man to go back for business. When he came to the door of the pharmacy, he discovered that a huge poster was hung at the door of the pharmacy. Sarah, who was beautiful and charming, was holding JX Vicen. There was also a slogan written by her hand: "New traditional medicine, new domestic products, I trust JX Vicen." Below, there is her personal signature. Charlie stepped into the drugstore and found that several people were consulting the salesperson. "Hey, girl, I want the JX Vicen endorsed by Sarah, give me a box." "Give me a box too." "I also want." The salesperson smiled and asked, "You all buy them for collection, right?" "How do you know?" One of the men asked in surprise. "Are you also a fan of Sarah?" "That's right." The salesperson smiled, "I am a fan of Sarah. I bought JX Vicen today." Almost all of them are her fans. After all, this is the first time she endorses an actual product, which is quite collectible. After speaking, the salesperson said again, "I heard that this medicine is quite effective, and it has a good effect on various discomforts of the spleen and stomach. You can buy it as a stock medicine." A young man who got a whole box said, "I am going to store this box as a whole, but I am not willing to open it and eat it. I will buy it later when I need it. Here to just collect the copy first." When Charlie saw this, he couldn't help being surprised. He really didn't expect that Sarah's influence could be so strong that fans would flock to buy the products she endorsed and go back to collect them. Just when he was surprised, a few more people came to buy JX Vicen, at least one box, and even 10 boxes in excess. After finally waiting for the people who bought JX Vicen to leave, Charlie stepped to the counter and said, "Hello, please bring me a box of liver protection tablets." The salesperson nodded, took a box of liver protecting tablets and handed it to him, and said, 39.8, thank you. Charlie gave a hum, scanned the code to pay, and then came out of the drugstore with the tablets. When he went out, he was looking down at the ingredients in this tablet, and he thought to himself that many men nowadays have a drink at the bar, and alcohol hurts the liver. No matter how less you drink, it will damage your liver. Therefore, liver-protecting drugs should have a large market space in the world. There are many classic prescriptions that have been lost in the 9 profound heavenly secrets, including not only the prescriptions for the stomach powder, but also the prescriptions for protecting the liver. After the JX Vicen powder becomes popular, he can launch the JX liver protection tablets. As he was thinking about it, he suddenly realized that there was a figure rushing in front of him. He subconsciously mobilized his whole body and prepared himself for a defensive counterattack. But he fixed his eyes and saw that who was standing in front of him wearing a mask. Nanako with eyes like a bright moon. He was a little surprised at once, thinking that the girl was gone, but he didn't expect her to be here. At this time, Nanako was ashamed and nervous. She looked at Charlie's face up close, and suddenly she didn't know what to say, so her brain became hot, and she passed the milk tea in her hand to him, and said with a smile, "Mr. Wade, please drink milk tea." In fact, Nanako didn't know what to say at once, so when she had the idea, she passed the milk tea out. As for Charlie, although he felt a little surprised, he did not drink a sip of water since he went out to pick up his father-in-law, and he was really dry. So, he took it subconsciously, smiled and said, "Thank you, just thirsty." As he said, he lowered his head and bit the straw, and took a big mouthful. Only then did Nanako react and exclaimed in her heart, "Oops! I've had a few sips of this cup of milk tea just now. Although I only took a few sips, I have already drunk it. That's awful, then, didn't I kiss Charlie indirectly?" Charlie didn't know that Nanako had drunk this milk tea. While drinking the milk tea, Charlie said, "Miss Ito, came to see me so late, what's the matter?" Nanako was in extreme shame. She has received 20 years of rigorous education from the ladies, and she knows the importance of the 6 words men and women give or receive. This can be said to be the closest contact between herself and the opposite S3X. Therefore, her heart at this time was both nervous and anxious. However, other than that, she was still faintly excited. When she was flustered, Charlie asked her, "Why are you here?" "Ah, Nanako said nervously, I am on the way, oh no, Nanako doesn't know how to lie, so suddenly she didn't know how to answer his question, and she immediately messed up her position. Charlie smiled indifferently and said, "Well, don't be too nervous in front of me, just say something straightforward." Nanako nodded lightly and said, I just wanted to meet you, because I am worried that after the game I won't have a chance to see you again, Master Wade." Charlie asked curiously, "What? Going back to Japan after the game?" "That's right." Nanako didn't dare to look into his eyes, and whispered, "My father has already arranged the plane. I will go back immediately after the game." Charlie wondered, "You are in the finals anyway, even if you lose, you are the runner-up in the competition. Don't you even plan to participate in the award ceremony?" Nanako smiled bitterly, "As the number 1 seed in the competition, I won't get the gold medal. I don't have the face to stay for the runner-up award ceremony." Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Practicing martial arts is not to win, because the birth of martial arts itself is not to fight against people, but to fight against yourself." "Fighting with oneself?" Nanako asked blankly, "Master Wade, what do you mean to fight with oneself?" Charlie smiled calmly, "Ms. Ito, the ancestors of our Chinese people may be different from the ancestors of any country or nation in this world. Our ancestors never liked bullying or aggression. Since ancient times, our ancestors in China have stayed firmly in the country and tried best not to be invaded by foreign enemies, but even in the most prosperous period when the nations came to Korea, we have never invaded any country, including yours. The ancestors of China always think about how to be good at ourselves. Even if we are fighting, we will only fight against ourselves yesterday, and against ourselves now. Fighting with ourselves is to be able to surpass the present and past ourselves. We fight with ourselves in medical skills to live longer, and we fight with ourselves in farming techniques to feed more people. We fighting with ourselves in the martial arts, in order to make ourselves stronger." Having said that, Charlie looked at Nanako and asked her, "If you are no longer allowed to participate in any competitions from now on, will you give up a promotion or even martial arts?" Nanako blurted out, "Of course not. Even if I no longer participate in any competitions, I will not give up martial arts. Charlie smiled and said, "That's it. You love martial arts, not martial arts to defeat others. So, what matters is whether you win or not. Even if you lose the game, you can't get any medals. What's so important? As long as you are worthy of the love of martial arts in your heart, it is enough." Nanako bowed to him slightly and said sincerely, "Thank you, Master Wade, Nanako understands." Charlie said, "For tomorrow's game, work hard, don't care too much about success or failure, just show your best side." Nanako nodded earnestly, "Master Wade can rest assured, I will definitely go all out." After speaking, she remembered Charlie's distressed eyes when she was in the Final Four, and she was filled with happiness and asked, "Master Wade, did I perform well in the last game?" Charlie heard her talk about the last match, and when he thought of the scene of her being repeatedly hit by the opponent in the arena and constantly injured, he still felt a little distressed in his heart. So he said seriously, "I think you performed very well in the last game. I don't quite understand why you let the opponent attack you repeatedly. In fact, your strength is higher than that of the opponent. If you fight back resolutely, then it is very likely that you will not be injured, but you have to keep giving the opponent opportunities." "Why is this?" Nanako said shyly, "Actually, I was mainly thinking that the best way to win, so I let the opponent attack me in the early stage, just to find the opponent's flaws." Charlie couldn't help being surprised. "Well, if you win the game, why do you have to use one move to control the enemy?" In Charlie's view, Nanako's one move to control the enemy was very different from Aoxu's one move to control the enemy. Because Aoxu's overall strength has now greatly increased and she has one move to control the enemy, it is not a big problem for her to do it, and it can even be said to be easy. However, although Nanako's strength is stronger than her opponent Michelle, she is not strong enough to defeat the opponent with one move, so she is tantamount to asking herself a very difficult problem. If it were not for insisting on taking the hardest path, she would not have been hit by the opponent several times in the game. Nanako was even more embarrassed at this time. She said very seriously, I mainly hope that Master Wade can treat me, will admire me." Charlie couldn't help being stunned when he heard this. Was it for him? Is this girl too stupid? In order to impress him first, stand on the ring and let your opponents continue to punch? What if the opponent gets you accidentally injured and you are severely injured? Thinking of this, he couldn't help asking, "Just to impress me and put yourself in such a dangerous situation, do you think it's worth it?" "It's worth it," Nanako resolutely and sincerely said. "At a certain moment, I saw Master Wade's eyes on the ring. Don't know if I would be wrong, but when I saw your eyes, I felt that everything was worth it in an instant." Charlie didn't know what kind of look he had left for Nanako at that time. After all, he didn't have a mirror at the time to see what his eyes looked like. But he remembered his mood at the time. At that time, seeing her constantly being beaten by opponents, he really felt distressed in his heart. So, thinking about it, what Nanako saw at the time should be his distressed look, right? Thinking of this, he also felt a little embarrassed, sighed, and said seriously, "Don't be so stupid in the future. You can go all out in the game, but don't put yourself in a dangerous situation for the sake of an extra bit of obsession. When Nanako heard Charlie caring about herself, her heart was excited like a little deer, and she nodded and said, "I know, Master Wade." Charlie looked at her and could still see the bruises and scars on the corners of her eyes. He could not help but exhorted, "The next match between you and Aoxu, you must remember to ensure your safety. If you feel that you are not Aoxu's opponent, then resolutely admit defeat and don't be ashamed, but don't hold it hard, because Aoxu's current strength is indeed higher than you, and it surpasses you a lot, too aggressive, for fear that you will be hurt." When Nanako heard this, she nodded gently, and couldn't help asking, "Master Wade, I have a question. I have been pressing it in my heart for a long time. I want to ask you to clarify." Charlie said indifferently, "Just tell me, if I can tell you, I won't hide my personal information." Nanako hurriedly said, "For Aoxu's match my teacher has also paid attention to it and research. I have watched a lot of videos of her previous games. I feel that her current strength seems to have improved by leaps and bounds in an instant, and it is obviously beyond the rhythm of normal training progress. So I would like to ask Master Wade, why did Aoxu make such a rapid and substantial improvement? Is this progress related to you?" Charlie smiled and asked, "What if I say it has nothing to do with me?" Nanako shook her head, "Please forgive me for being rude. If Mr. Charlie says it has nothing to do with this matter, I will not believe it." Charlie nodded and said frankly, "You are right, it is indeed related to me." Nanako said, "Thank you, Master Wade, for your frankness." As the two talked, they had already paced to the door of Thompson. Charlie looked at her and said, "Okay, you go back to rest early and prepare for the next game." Nanako was a little bit reluctant, but she nodded her head obediently, put her hands in front of her, and bowed deeply, "Thank Master Wade for these words tonight." Charlie smiled and nodded, waved to her, and said, "Thank you for your milk tea, I'm leaving." After speaking, stepped into the door of Thompson. Nanako followed behind and looked for a long time, until his figure completely disappeared in front of her, then she sighed and turned to leave. At this moment, Oris Hill International Hotel. Just after taking a shower in his room, Jiro poured a glass of whiskey leisurely and sat on the sofa in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the night view of Oris Hill with contentment. The reason why he is in such a good mood is because the attention level of the Oris Hill International Sanda competition broke the record in China, and even with this, the popularity of Kobayashi Vison has skyrocketed. According to feedback, the sales volume increased 7 or 8 times at once, far exceeding his expectations. Look at it this way, Kobayashi Pharmaceutical will soon take a step forward. At this point, he felt refreshed and couldn't help drinking a few more shots of strong wine. After these few sips of wine, his stomach is hot. Immediately afterwards, there was some pain. Jiro's expression changed slightly, and immediately reached out for his own Kobayashi's stomach powder. In fact, Jiro has always had a hidden stomach problem. He has a good wine nature, and loves to drink the most, and he likes to drink strong alcohol, so some roots of the disease have long been left in his stomach. Last year, his stomach problem got worse, and the doctor told him to stop drinking. In order to solve his stomach problem, he relied on his professional knowledge of pharmacy, and specifically read a lot of classical medical books and studied a lot. The prescription, Kobayashi Vicin, was formulated as a daily medicine that can relieve stomach discomfort. Kobayashi's stomach powder is very successful. But this kind of stomach powder is like a plaster, which can greatly relieve joint rheumatism, but it is almost impossible to say a radical cure. Stomach powder is actually the same. It is impossible to cure serious stomach diseases with Vicin. Just like a person, the cartilage at the knee joint has worn out, and the pain is all day long. In this case, plastering can only temporarily relieve the pain. At most it has the effect of reducing swelling and inflammation, but it must not restore a person's damaged knee cartilage. In other words, even if this kind of patient puts on a lifetime plaster, it is impossible to cure his knee joint injury. The same goes for Kobayashi's Vicin. Jiro formulated Kobayashi's Vicin according to ancient Chinese prescriptions. Although it has a great relieving effect on his stomach problems, it has not been able to cure him for a long time, so that Jiro now takes several packets of Kobayashi's Vicin every day to relieve his stomach discomfort. Just as he had picked up 2 packets of Kobayashi's Vicin and was about to drink it with whiskey, a knock on the door suddenly sounded. He put down the wine glass and held his stomach, and walked to the door. Through the screen of the electronic eye, he saw his assistant standing outside the door, so he stretched out his hand to open it. As soon as the door opened, he looked at the assistant outside and asked, "It's so late, what's the matter?" The assistant immediately handed a packet of medicine to him, and said nervously, "Chairman, today a local pharmaceutical factory in Oris Hill suddenly launched a stomach powder called JX Vicin, and also specially invited the hottest model in China. The female star Sarah came to endorse it. This drug has already set off a panic buying frenzy across the country." "What?" Jiro frowned and said coldly, "Chinese pharmaceutical companies dare to imitate our Kobayashi Pharmaceuticals fist products, it's too much." When Jiro said this, he didn't even think that Kobayashi's Vicin itself copied ancient Chinese prescriptions. He took the JX Vicin, looked at it a few times, and said disdainfully, "There are at least a dozen products that imitate our Kobayashi Vicin. There are at least a dozen products in China, South Korea, and Southeast Asia, but none of them can match ours. This JX Vicin, it must be the same, just rubbish, not enough." The assistant said, "But, this medicine is unusual. It is endorsed by Sarah, and Sarah has never endorsed any substantive products before. This is the first time, so the fan effect is very strong. Fans of her have already generated an extremely scary purchasing spree." When Jiro heard the assistant say this, he couldn't help but pay attention. He couldn't help frowning and said, "I know that Sarah is indeed a very beautiful woman, and she is also very good at acting. I didn't expect that this time she would act as a spokesperson for our competitors." After a pause, he said again, "Why don't you do this? Please contact her agency and ask how much money will be needed if she endorses our Kobayashi Vicin." The assistant nodded and said, "Then I will contact her agency early tomorrow morning." Jiro said coldly, "I have to wait for tomorrow morning and call now." The agent's mobile phone is turned on 24 hours a day and is kept open. "Okay, I'll get in touch now." Jiro returned to the room, feeling annoyed. He knew that in this era, no matter what he sells, he is most afraid of forming an idol effect. Many enthusiastic fans don't care whether the idol endorsement is good or bad. As long as it is an idol endorsement, they must buy it, and they buy in large quantities. Moreover, the fanatic buying behavior of fans is very exclusive. In the same type of product, if he chooses to buy his idol endorsement, he will definitely not even look at other products of the same type. If this is the case, it is very likely that this JX Weissen, with Sarah's influence, will snatch away a large group of consumers from Kobayashi Weissen. Thinking of this, Jiro's expression grew gloomy. OSHT. Originally, Kobayashi Weissen had to take advantage of this Sanda competition to spread all over China, but he didn't expect to meet a bump halfway through this time. When he was depressed, Jiro felt another pain in his stomach. Had it not been for the assistant to interrupt, he had already taken the 2 packets of medicine. Therefore, he subconsciously wanted to continue taking his Kobayashi Weissen at this time. However, seeing the JX Weissen in his hand, he couldn't help but think, well, I'll take this opportunity to personally try this JX Weissen. How many kilograms? After all, I have long been a deep user of Kobayashi Weissen, and my stomach can easily determine the quality of a Weissen. If the efficacy of this medicine is inferior to Kobayashi's Weissen in my own feelings, then I don't have to worry about its threat. Although Sarah has heat, the heat will pass sooner or later. When the heat passes, everything depends on it. The strength is the true determiner. At that time, this JX whey powder will be automatically eliminated by consumers because of its ineffectiveness. Thinking of this, Jiro stepped back to the soft sofa, sat down, unpacked the JX Weissen package, and took out 2 small bags from it. Usually, when his stomach is upset, he needs 2 packs of Kobayashi Weissen to relieve. Therefore, he also subconsciously took out 2 packs of JX Weissen, prepared to try the same dose first. But soon he gave up the idea again, thinking that he should start with 1 pack first. If 1 pack has no effect, add another pack, and if it doesn't work, continue to increase the amount. Anyway, the medicine itself is more of a healthcare nature, and the raw materials used are all non-toxic and without side effect ingredients. You can eat a few more packets without fear of problems. What Jiro thought was that it would be best if this JX Weissen had no effect even after taking 10 packs. In that case, this medicine would be completely overturned. So, he tore open one of the packets directly, poured the powder in the packaging directly into the mouth, and then took the whiskey and poured it down. When taking JX Weissen, Jiro was completely unconcerned. He felt that this medicine must be much worse than his own Kobayashi Weissen, but how much worse it depends on how he feels after taking a pack. However, in the next second, he immediately frowned tightly. After taking JX Weissen, Jiro could clearly feel a warm current in his abdomen. This warm current is like a spring rain that moisturizes things, quickly enveloping his stomach, and it brings very powerful and effective care and analgesic effects, giving him a warm feeling. And the discomfort in his stomach, because of this warm current, immediately disappeared, and his whole body became extremely comfortable. When he took Kobayashi's Weissen by myself, he felt this way, but in terms of the effect, it was 1,000 miles away. Why is this JX Weissen's medicinal effect so good? It's incredible. Even if he usually take 2 packets of his Weissen, he doesn't feel so comfortable. Why is this medicine so amazing? What kind of formula is used here? Thinking of this, Jiro gave a thud, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Kobayashi's Vicin is the next trump card for Kobayashi Pharmaceutical to enter the world. He didn't want the trump card to be immediately crushed by a powerful competitor soon after it went public. If no measures and methods are adopted, then Kobayashi Vicin, in the face of the powerful medicinal effects of this JX Vicin, can basically be declared a failure. Jiro was flustered and anxious, and at the same time he kept comforting himself, and wondered, could it be that the effect of this medicine comes and goes quickly? If the effect of JX Vicin will dissipate soon, then there is still a chance for Kobayashi's Vicin. So Jiro decided to wait. Wait and see if the stomach discomfort will recur in a short time. However, Jiro waited for an hour, only to discover a fact that shocked him even more. The medicinal effect of this JX Vicin hasn't diminished at all, and his stomach still feels very refreshing, like soaking the whole person in a hot spring in the winter. He couldn't help exclaiming, "What is this? How could there be such a strong stomach powder? I have read the ancient Chinese prescriptions several times. Kobayashi Vicin can be said to be the best prescription in ancient Chinese prescriptions. With the addition of some modern upgrades and improvements of my own, it is possible to have the current effect. I originally thought that Kobayashi Vicin had reached the top. However, this JX Vicin, the effect of the medicine is even dozens of blocks away from it." At this moment, Jiro's stomach is extremely comfortable, and his heart is extremely painful. He was planning to leap up from Kobayashi Vicin and directly become the world's top pharmaceutical company, but he didn't expect that before it had time to rise, he was shot to death by the JX Vicin of this dog. It's impossible to be reconciled to someone else. He immediately called his assistant and asked, "What is the market price of this Ghost 9 Profound Stomach Powder?" The assistant said, "The retail price is the same as our Kobayashi Vicin." Same. Jiro felt a sharp pain in his heart. He couldn't help but reprimanded in irritation, "It's clear to aim at our Kobayashi's stomach powder. JX Pharmaceutical, it." At this time, Jiro was unable to not be angry. JX Vicin, the treatment field is exactly the same as Kobayashi Vicin, and it is an absolute benchmark product in itself. However, the medicinal effect of JX Vicin is much stronger than Kobayashi Vicin. What's more annoying is that the packaging specifications, net content, and selling price of JX Vicin are the same as Kobayashi Vicin. This is very uncomfortable. It is much easier to use than his Vicin, but the weight and price are exactly the same. Isn't this going to kill the rhythm of Kobayashi's Vicin? Coupled with the endorsement of Sarah, it suddenly became popular in the Chinese local market, which is equivalent to completely choking Kobayashi's grand desire to expand into the Chinese market. Moreover, being defeated by JX in the Chinese local market is only the first step. Needless to think, JX Vicin is such a good medicine. This JX pharmaceutical company will definitely not only be satisfied with the Chinese market, but they will also definitely export to China's surrounding countries as soon as possible, and even to Europe and the United States. If JX Vicin landed on the Japanese market, wouldn't it have robbed Kobayashi's base camp? If Kobayashi's Vicin loses the overseas market and the Japanese domestic market, then the future of Kobayashi Pharmaceutical will be worrying. In other words, this JX Bison, it is possible that Kobayashi Pharmaceutical will never recover. More importantly, all the hopes of Jiro now rest on Kobayashi's Bison. He's so optimistic about Kobayashi's Bison, and praises Kobayashi's Bison for its efficacy and the future of Kobayashi Pharmaceutical. This includes the head of the Ito family, Nanako's father, Ito Yuhiko. The reason why Ito Yuhiko wants to marry Nanako to himself is to marry the Kobayashi family and get a chance to buy a stake in Kobayashi Pharmaceutical. If Kobayashi Pharmaceutical's prospects change from bright to bleak in an instant, then Yuhiko Ito will definitely lose interest in him and Kobayashi Pharmaceutical. In that case, what else would he take to marry Nanako? You know, Nanako is a goddess who is crazily sought after in Japan, and is known as the Yamato Nadeko in Japan. It can be said that she is the most perfect goddess in Japan. Whatever you say, you can't let her slip away from his hands. At this point, Jiro immediately said to the assistant next to him, "Check me the background of this JX Pharmaceutical. Hurry up." The assistant nodded hurriedly, "I know, Chairman, I will arrange for someone to investigate." Jiro asked again, "Has Sarah's agent contacted?" "What did the other parties say?" "Yes, they contacted." The assistant said angrily, "The person who contacted is called August." The woman's voice was too loud. "I said that I hope to invite Miss Sarah to endorse our products." She directly said that Miss Sarah will never again do endorsement of any physical product. It is only the only endorsement of JX Bison. Jiro was dumbfounded, and blurted out, "How much endorsement fee did JX Pharmaceutical give to Sarah? Could it be that all her physical product endorsements have been bought out?" The assistant said in embarrassment, "President, don't know about this." The other party hung up the phone without letting me ask carefully. "What a fraudulent!" Jiro said with a black face, "If this is the case, then I can only think of a solution on this JX Pharmaceutical. In any case, I have to buy their formula patent." The assistant asked carefully, "President, is this medicine effective?" "Very good," Jiro said gloomily, "at least 10 times that of Kobayashi's Bison." The assistant seemed to be struck by lightning. 10 times. The difference is so big. Jiro nodded, and said with a gloomy expression, "You must not tell this story. If we can get the prescription for JX Bison, we can reverse everything and even take it to the next level. But if we can't get the prescription, Kobayashi Pharmaceutical's trouble is big." Upon hearing this, the assistant couldn't help asking, "President, such a good prescription is a cash cow for everyone. Will this JX Pharmaceutical agree to sell it to us?" Jiro gritted his teeth and said, "It's about the life and death of our Kobayashi Pharmaceutical Co., Ltd. Regardless of whether they agree or not, I will force the other party to agree." Jiro didn't realize that he had completely fallen into the same madness as his brother Ichiro. In the beginning, Ichiro coveted the magical medicine that Charlie gave to Tiankai, and wanted to use the magical medicine to cure the paralysis of his father, Masao Kobayashi, and even let Kobayashi Pharmaceutical stand up to the top of the global pharmaceutical company. Now he feeds the dogs in the dog farm. And Jiro, unknowingly, opened the door to the same fate as his brother. Soon, the assistant got the results of the investigation. He reported to Jiro Huai, Chairman, I have found some information about JX Pharmaceutical. It turned out that this company was called Wei Pharmaceutical. When we evaluated Chinese pharmaceutical companies before, we also evaluated this company. The overall market value at that time at around 2 to 3 billion, it is not too big a company, and we have never considered it an opponent. Jiro frowned and asked, then it's so good, why should it be renamed JX Pharmaceutical? The assistant said, I haven't heard about this. However, after the name was changed to JX Pharmaceutical, their shareholding structure has also changed. Before the Wei family held 100% of the shares, but after the change, the Wei family only held 20% of the shares. The remaining 80% are held by a mysterious person. Mysterious person? Jiro asked in surprise, can't you find out who this mysterious person is? Unable to find out. Assistant reported, this equity structure has top lawyers behind it, hiding the key information of major shareholders. It is impossible to find out who owns 80% of the shares. I think this matter is not simple. The major shareholder behind this might have a strong background. We must act cautiously. Jiro nodded, gritted his teeth and said, I don't need you to say that I know that this person's background is definitely not ordinary, but now we can't take care of that much. Kobayashi Pharmaceutical takes off soon, and I absolutely cannot allow its wings to be cut off by this JX Bison at this time. The assistant hurriedly asked him, President, what do you mean? Jiro said, tomorrow morning, go to JX Pharmaceutical. The assistant said, Chairman, Miss Nanako will be participating in the finals tomorrow morning. Don't you go to the scene to cheer her on? Jiro waved his hand boredly, the top priority now is to gnaw off JX Pharmaceutical. If we can't gnaw it down, then I can't gnaw off Nanako. If we can gnaw it down, then Nanako will bend sooner or later. She can't escape from the palm of my hand. The assistant immediately nodded and said, President, I understand. Jiro said, by the way, we should contact now and mobilize a group of masters from China to try to get them to Oris Hill at noon tomorrow. If the head of JX Pharmaceutical is very iron and can't chew it down, let these masters solve it for us. The next day, Jiro left early in the morning. Charlie, after eating breakfast made by his mother-in-law Elaine, borrowed the car of his old man and drove to Oris Hill Stadium. I have to say that since Elaine became soft, Charlie's life at home has been much more comfortable. And since Elaine heard Charlie say that he can pay her for taking care of his future children, she changed the way to lick Charlie, and at the same time kept persuading Claire of course to have a baby early. Elaine has been married to Jacob for so many years, and her cooking skills have never improved. Anyway, she has been fooling her husband and daughter. But now, she actually started to study the recipe with her mobile phone, and she was determined to maintain Charlie, so that she could have a good life in the future. She already understood it. Although Charlie is an orphan with no background, he has also mastered a craft of feng shui. In the future, this family will definitely not be short of money. In addition, she lives in this big villa of Thompson, which is worth more than 100 million. Don't mention too much satisfaction. So, for Charlie now, she just wanted to please, not anything else. This point surprised both Claire and Jacob. The two of them did not expect that Elaine, who had never bowed his head at home, would start to bow to Charlie. Of course, the two of them knew very well that Elaine was running for money. After all, no one knew Elaine's behavior better than them. But there is nothing wrong with this, at least there won't be any troubles in the house. Charlie drove to the stadium, which was already crowded. Today's final can be said to have attracted national attention. The people all over the country want to see if the dark horse Aoxio can be blacked to the end and directly get a champion back. When Charlie came backstage, Aoxio had already arrived early. Seeing him coming, she was ashamed and happy, holding his arm, and asked him softly, "Master, do you think I can win today?" Charlie nodded and said seriously, "I think you will definitely win." As he said, he couldn't help thinking of Nanako again. Admittedly, Nanako's strength was much higher than Aoxio's before, but Aoxio's strength now surpassed Nanako by a large margin. Therefore, Charlie didn't worry about Aoxio's victory. However, he was faintly worried whether Aoxio would accidentally and seriously injure Nanako during the game. To be honest, he has a good impression of the girl Nanako. Although she is a woman, he has to admit that she is a model of beauty in terms of appearance, figure, personality, temperament, family education, and accomplishments. These 8 words, such as quiet as a virgin and moving as a rabbit, are the best interpretation of her. Any normal man will inevitably feel things when facing such a tender woman. She is like the most splendid and fragrant flower, and everyone will feel a little caring. Although Charlie didn't like her, his appreciation still accounted for the majority. Appreciating a person naturally does not want that person to be harmed. However, the opponent she faced right now was Little Pepper Aoxio. From the competition, Charlie certainly hopes that Aoxio will win, and at the same time she can also win honor to the Chinese. However, personally, he didn't want Nanako to be hurt too badly. At a certain moment, Charlie wanted to urge Aoxio to leave her a little bit of strength after she took the stage, and not hurt Nanako too badly. However, after hesitating for a while, he gave up the idea. Because, he knew he could not interfere with Aoxio's game. If he said this, Aoxio would definitely be shocked and lost. After all, he's the master who she admires infinitely in her eyes, and is also her current coach. If he were to show mercy to her enemies before her game, she would definitely feel betrayed. Therefore, he can only keep this worry in his heart, and at the same time secretly, if Nanako is not seriously injured, he will stop interfering and let her return to Japan directly. But if Nanako is seriously injured, then he can't ignore it and save her more or less once, and he can't turn her into a waste like her master Yamamoto Kazuki. Meanwhile, in the lounge on the other side, Nanako looked a little nervous. Her assistant, Koichi Tanaka, placed 2 mobile phones in front of her, both of which were on video calls. One is a video with Kazuki Yamamoto lying in the hospital, the other is a video with her father, Ito Yuhiko, who is far away in Japan. Yamamoto Kazuki said with a serious face, "Nanako, it's too late to quit. You'd better not play against that Aoxio. In case of serious injury, your life will be ruined." Nanako said seriously, "Master, please don't say anything like this. I will be on stage in 10 minutes. Please say some words of encouragement, or give me some tactics." Yamamoto Kazuki sighed, "Hey! You, why don't you listen to me?" Yuhiko Ito on another mobile phone was also nervous and said, "Nanako, Mr. Yamamoto is your mentor, why don't you listen to his advice and insist on playing this game? You are the father's favorite child. Dad would rather want you to do nothing in your life rather than wanting you to be hurt." Nanako's eyes reddened, and she said, "Father, you saw me grow up, and you know my character best. If I retreat in this game today, I will not be able to let it go for the rest of my life. I am only 22 years old this year. Would you like me to regret it for the rest of my life?" Yuhiko Ito couldn't help but choked up and said, "Nanako, you always call your father an adult. Today, I want to hear you call me Odo-san like a child of ordinary people." Nanako stood up immediately, bowed deeply to the mobile video, and said respectfully, "Odo-san." Odo-san, that means father in Japanese. After listening to Nanako's Odo-san, Ito Yuhiko sighed softly and said, "Nanako, go, Dad respect you, chase your own clear conscience, Dad is waiting for you in Tokyo." Nanako smiled sweetly, and said, "Odo-san, if I get seriously injured this time, I don't want to go back to Tokyo. I want to go to Kyoto for training. I prefer the environment of Kyoto. Tokyo is the capital of Japan and a cosmopolitan city, with tall buildings, busy traffic, and full of modernity. Kyoto, on the other hand, is the ancient capital of Japan. There are a large number of historical sites dating back hundreds or even thousands of years, and they are fairly well preserved, with a less modern atmosphere, a quiet environment and a pleasant climate." When she was young, Nanako grew up in the old house of the Ito family in Kyoto. When she was 14, she moved to Tokyo with her family. But in her heart, Kyoto is the only hometown in her memory. Young people like to chase fashion. When it comes to the degree of fashion, compared with China, Japan is definitely much better. It can even be said that the degree of fashion in Japan is higher than that in China. That's why there will be hairy tied, and girls will have Japanese hairstyles, Japanese manicures, and Japanese makeup. It can be said that Japanese girls are very fashionable overall, and they prefer a fashionable metropolis like Tokyo. But Nanako is an exception. She has always disliked fashionable things. On the contrary, she has always liked the more classical culture. For example, she likes to study tea art, ancient history, ancient poetry, and even ancient architecture and clothing. Therefore, the city of Kyoto has always perfectly matched her temperament. She also knows that today's game of hers can be said to be very bad luck. Although she is unlikely to lose her life, she is afraid that she will not be able to escape the fate of being seriously injured. Therefore, she hopes to return to Kyoto to live and recuperate after being injured. When Yuhiko Ito heard her words, he blurted out his face with affection and without hesitation, "No problem. I'll let someone clean up the mansion in Kyoto." "Great!" Nanako was overjoyed and said excitedly, "I have always wanted to go back to Kyoto to live for a while, but I have never had a chance. This time I can do it." After that, she said again, "By the way, Odo-san, I have to trouble you to say hello to my school." "Okay." Ito nodded again and again, "Leave these to me, don't worry about anything, go and participate in the competition with no distractions. Nanako bowed again. 9:20. The organizer informs the players to debut. The finals really received too much attention. National TV stations are broadcasting live, and countless video websites are also broadcasting live on the internet. Therefore, Charlie did not accompany Aoxu on the stage again, but left backstage early and sat down alone on the seat with the back of the camera at the game scene. He believed that Aoxu no longer needed his guidance, so she just has to watch her game silently. Quickly, Aoxu and Nanako entered the arena from the entrances on both sides of the ring. Both girls are stunning, so when they appeared on the stage, they aroused huge cheers. As soon as the two of them appeared on the stage, they attracted everyone's attention, but their own gazes began to look for the same person in the audience. That figure is Charlie. Charlie is now Aoxu's spiritual pillar. She knew very well that without Charlie's help, she would never have been able to get to the present. As for Nanako, Charlie is now full of heart. The reason why she played this game that she knew she would lose and even suffered serious injuries was large because she didn't want Charlie to look down upon her. When both of them saw Charlie, their eyes converged towards him at the same time. Aoxu did not conceal the admiration and love on her face, but Nanako's eyes were full of tenderness. In the ring, the referee took the two girls to the center of the ring and explained the rules of the game to the two. As for the two of them, neither of them looked at the referee or each other, they were all looking at Charlie in the audience. Charlie was suddenly stressed. Unexpectedly, these two girls would not be ready for the game, so they would observe him constantly on stage. Is he so good looking? Isn't it okay for them to get things right? Just thinking about it, the referee on the stage was also embarrassed. He coughed twice and said, "Two, are you listening to me?" Aoxu was the first to recover, and hurriedly blushed and said, "I'm sorry Mr. Referee, I just lost my mind." The referee reluctantly looked at Nanako again. "Miss Ito, how about you?" Nanako's face flushed instantly, and she hurriedly said in a low voice, "Sorry Mr. Referee, I'm also a little distracted." After speaking, she couldn't help but glanced at Aoxu, only to realize that Aoxu's face was already full of the shyness of a girl. She couldn't help but wonder, does Aoxu like Charlie too? Aoxu also looked at Nanako in surprise. Although Nanako was calmer than her, she blushed, so she couldn't help but wonder. Isn't it? Isn't this Nanako, like me, like Master? However, she soon relieved herself and thought, a good man like Master, most women will not be able to resist his attraction. Therefore, it is normal for Nanako to like Master and want to come to see him. If she is changed to a girl from Europe and America, she might also like Master. Hey, it's a pity that Master is a married person after all. No matter how many women like him, it would be difficult to have a chance to really get together with him, right? Dad always keeps me and Master close. Trying to get Master can also like me, but after so long, I can't tell how he feels towards me." The two women thought of each other in this way, and fell into contemplation again. The referee thought that he had brought their attention back, and he murmured a lot, and then found that neither of them looked at him, as if they were both in a state of absent-mindedness. He couldn't help but get a little big head and asked, Do you understand? Nanako hurriedly said, sorry, what did you just say? Aoxu also looked embarrassed. The referee took it and said in a low voice, you two, you are both top female Sanda fighters. You have passed all the way to the finals. In the finals, so many audiences and multimedia reporters are watching you both. What? Aoxu said apologetically, please rest assured, referee, we will have a good game, we must. Nanako also stuck out her tongue and said seriously, referee, we are ready. The referee nodded and said, neither of you has a coach to accompany you today? Yes. The two nodded at the same time. Aoxu's coach was Charlie, but Charlie went to the auditorium today and did not coach her in front of the ring. And Nanako's coach was still lying on the hospital bed watching the live broadcast, so neither of them had a coach to follow today. So the referee said seriously, both of them are masters, and they know that they have no eyes. So when the game starts, if you get injured, try to accurately judge your situation. Don't insist blindly. If you can't hold it, please tell me immediately. I'll stop the game in time, understand? Usually, when the game reaches a critical moment, or the player reaches a very critical moment, the coach is the one who throws the towel and declares defeat. However, if the coach is not on the court, it depends on the players themselves. But sometimes the players are blinded by their own play, or are seriously injured and can't react at all. This makes it easy to be seriously injured by the opponent, so the coach reminds them that they must not hold on at critical moments. Both of them nodded seriously. So, the referee announced loudly, "Okay, the game begins." Since the two girls were a little absent-minded just now, when the referee announced the start of the game, neither of them was able to enter the state immediately as before. So the style of painting on the ring was a bit strange at once. The referee announced the start of the game and quickly withdrew a certain distance. It stands to reason that the players on both sides would immediately enter the rhythm and begin tentative attacks. However, the two on the stage were unmoved for several seconds. At this time, a male audience shouted, "Aoxu, what are you doing in a daze? Quickly defeat that girl." "Yes, Aoxu, the time has come to win glory for the country." "Oh, Aoxu, this girl looks pretty, promise me not to slap her in the face, okay?" Aoxu suddenly felt a little big head. This game is the highest level game she has ever played when she grows up. However, it was also the most lacking game atmosphere. So, she could only do her best to get rid of these interferences, hugged Nanako and said, "Miss Ito, offended." After speaking, she immediately rushed, and a sharp fist rushed towards Nanako. Nanako didn't dare to take it lightly and responded with 12 points. She knew that she would never be able to beat Aoxu with her own hard work. The power gap was too great, even if she was outspoken, she would be tough enough, so what she wanted to do now was to try her best to defend first, and then look for opportunities to counterattack the opponent instead of fighting. Injury to the opponent, only to be able to score technically from the referee. Even if you lose, you cannot lose too thoroughly. So, she backed her legs extremely quickly, turned her hands into palms, and met Aoxu's fist with her soft palms, and immediately after the moment she touched her, she quickly followed the opponent's strength and accelerated her retreat. In an instant, it was already avoided her attack. Aoxua didn't expect that Nanako would use such a soft and strong way to ease her own struggling blow, and she couldn't help but be secretly surprised. Nanako's coping style shows that her experience is extraordinary. The fist itself is very hard. If given enough strength and speed, the fist is very aggressive and lethal. At this time, no matter you use any part of your body to force the opponent's fist, you must first carry all the opponent's strength. It's like a fast-moving car about to hit a hard wall. The people in the car simply cannot withstand the huge force of the flesh and blood hitting the steering wheel of the car at the moment of the collision. However, although it is not advisable to carry hard, it is a very good way to deal with it with softness. It is as if an airbag burst between the person and the steering wheel at the moment of the crash. The soft and elastic airbag can well protect the body, and at the same time can well remove the impact force. This is particularly critical. Nanako was able to judge the whole situation in the light of sparks, and immediately responded, using a soft palm to relieve her strength. This trick really made Aoxu admire her. This is the importance of experience and reaction speed. She also knows that Nanako is undoubtedly far better than herself in these 2 points. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.